To understand how a 14-year-old boy broke his own mother's heart to realize a dream, we need to return to that cold February afternoon in Le Chesnay, France, when a phone call forever changed the destiny of the Wembanyama family. A call that would bring the opportunity of dreams, and the nightmare of a separation that no mother's heart was prepared to face. The house on Rue des Écoles had that characteristic aroma of French homes in winter, a mixture of fresh bread coming from the oven, strong coffee, and the welcoming warmth that only united families can create. It was a house where laughter echoed through the corridors, where dinners lasted hours with animated conversations, and where every corner held memories of a happy childhood being built day after day. You can perceive how certain homes have a special energy, an atmosphere that embraces whoever enters and reluctantly lets go of whoever needs to leave. Elodie Wembanyama was in the kitchen preparing dinner when the phone rang on that afternoon that would change everything. At 42 years old, she carried the natural elegance of former professional athletes. She had been a basketball player before dedicating herself entirely to her family. Her hands, still agile and precise, cut vegetables with the same dexterity with which she once handled the ball on court. Madame Wembanyama, this is Jonathan Mitchell from IMG Academy in Florida. I'm calling about your son, Victor. The voice on the other side of the line spoke careful French, but Elodie immediately noticed the American accent. Her heart accelerated, not because she sensed something bad, but because a mother always knows when something big is about to happen in her children's lives. Victor was upstairs doing math homework. At 14 years old, he already measured 6 feet 10 inches, a height that made him need to bend down to pass through the doors of the house where he had grown up. But despite his giant body, there was still in him the innocence of someone who played with Lego a few hours before and asked his mother to check his homework. Madam, Victor is an exceptional talent. Our scouts have been following him for 2 years. We would like to offer a full scholarship at our academy. It's a unique opportunity. It's impossible not to feel how certain words can sound simultaneously like blessing and curse, depending on what they mean to whoever hears them. Elodie held the phone with growing strength, while Jonathan explained the details. IMG Academy, one of the most prestigious basketball academies in the world. Coaches who had molded future NBA stars, state-of-the-art facilities, a direct path to American professional basketball, and more than 5,000 miles from home. I understand it's a difficult decision for a family, Jonathan continued, his voice carrying the understanding of someone who had already made this call to hundreds of parents around the world. But I need to be honest. Talents like Victor's appear once in a generation. This opportunity may not arise again. When Victor came down for dinner that night, he found a different atmosphere at the usual table. His parents exchanged looks loaded with meaning, and his younger siblings seemed to sense that something important was being silently discussed above their heads. Victor, his father, Felix, finally broke the silence. We need to talk about something important, about your future in basketball. How many times in life does a family need to sit together to discuss a decision that will change everything forever? Felix's words echoed through the dining room like stones thrown into a calm lake, creating waves that expanded in ever-widening circles. Victor stopped chewing, his large eyes, still of a boy, despite his man's height, moving between his father and mother, trying to decipher what was happening. An American Academy called today, Elodie said, her voice maintaining the calm that only mothers can fake when their hearts are breaking. They want to offer you a scholarship, an incredible opportunity. In the United States? Victor asked, and for the first time his voice carried the weight of understanding that some opportunities come with prices that go far beyond money. Yes, in Florida. It's far, very far, Felix continued, but it's also the chance that every young player dreams of having. The silence that followed was filled only by the sound of the old clock in the hallway, a clock that had marked thousands of family dinners, thousands of conversations, thousands of moments of a childhood that now seemed to be coming to an end abruptly and unexpectedly. Naturally, this leads us to question, how does a family measure the weight of a dream against the value of staying together? "Do you want me to go?" Victor asked, his voice still carrying that peculiar mixture of maturity and vulnerability that characterizes teenagers in decisive moments. Elodie closed her eyes for a second. Just a second, but enough for Victor to notice that the question had touched something deep and painful. When she opened them, her eyes shone with contained tears, but her voice remained firm. "We want you to be happy, mon chéri. We want you to realize your dreams. Even if—" She stopped, unable to finish the sentence that everyone at the table could complete silently. "Even if it means leaving." "You don't need to decide now," Felix said quickly. "It's a very important decision. We'll talk, research, think together." But Victor already knew, deep in his heart, that the decision had been made the moment the opportunity was presented. At 14 years old, he already possessed the maturity to understand that some trains pass only once in life, and that letting them go meant living forever with the question of what if. That night, after everyone went to sleep, Elodie remained awake in the kitchen, holding a cup of tea that grew cold between her hands. She looked at the table where so many meals had been shared, where so many conversations about school, friends, and childhood dreams had happened. And for the first time since becoming a mother, Elodie Wembanyama understood that truly loving sometimes means having the courage to let go of what we love most in the world. What she didn't know was that, in a few weeks, she would be reading a letter that would make her cry and smile simultaneously. A letter that a 14-year-old boy would write to try to explain to his mother that some departures are necessary for dreams to finally become reality. 3 weeks had passed since the call that changed everything, and the house on Rue des Écoles had transformed into a place where smiles coexisted with sighs, where normal conversations were interrupted by silences loaded with meaning. It was as if the entire family was learning a new language, the language of loving someone who is about to leave. You can perceive how certain decisions hover over a house like heavy clouds, changing the light that enters through the windows, altering the taste of meals and the weight of hugs. Victor had spent nights awake in his room, staring at the ceiling he had known since childhood. Every stain, every shadow projected by the garden tree. At 14 years old, he now carried the weight of a choice that most adults would find impossible to make. Leaving for the United States meant leaving behind not just a house, but an entire life built with people who loved him unconditionally. During the day, he tried to maintain normalcy. He did homework, played basketball in the backyard with his siblings, helped his mother in the kitchen as he always did. But everyone in the family could feel that something had changed. A subtle tension that transformed even the simplest moments into precious memories. "Maman," Victor said one afternoon, finding Elodie folding clothes in her room, "do you want me to go to America?" The question came out directly, without beating, around the bush, as only teenagers can do. Elodie stopped folding the shirt she had in her hands, one of Victor's basketball shirts, which in a few years had become too small for her son, who grew like a young tree. It's impossible not to feel how simple questions can carry the weight of years of love, sacrifice, and shared dreams. "Victor," she replied, sitting on the edge of the bed and signaling for him to join her. "Since you were little, I saw how your eyes sparkled when you held a basketball. It wasn't just fun, it was passion. It was as if you were born for that." She looked through the bedroom window, where she could see the improvised court in the backyard, a hoop that Felix had installed when Victor was only 8 years old. How many hours of training, how many dreams had she witnessed from that window? "I want you to be happy, mon trésor. And if that happiness means leaving—" Her voice failed for a moment, revealing the internal struggle she had been fighting for weeks. "If it means leaving, then I'll support you, even if my heart breaks a little." Victor approached his mother and, with that naturalness that only exists between mothers and children, rested his head that was too big on her shoulder. For a moment, he returned to being the little boy who ran to her arms when he got hurt, and not the giant teenager about to conquer the world. "I'm scared, Maman," he whispered, and his words broke something in Elodie's heart. "Scared of being far from you, all. Scared of not succeeding. Scared of forgetting what it's like to be home." How many times in life does a mother need to be strong exactly when she most wants to break down and cry together with her child? Elodie hugged Victor tightly, feeling how he still fit perfectly in her arms despite his height. "You won't forget, mon chéri. Home isn't just a place. Home is the love we carry inside us. And that love goes with you wherever you go." That night, during dinner, Felix made the announcement that everyone expected and feared at the same time. "I spoke with IMG Academy today. If Victor decides to go, classes begin in 6 weeks. 6 weeks, 42 days, 1,008 hours. Time had become something tangible, countable, precious in a way it had never been before. Victor's younger siblings, Oscar, 12 years old, and Eve, 10, still didn't fully understand what the departure meant. For them, America seemed like a distant adventure, something that happened in movies. But Victor knew that when he left, a piece of their childhood would leave with him. "Can I visit you?" Oscar asked, his eyes still carrying the innocence of someone who believes that distances are just numbers. "Of course you can," Victor replied, "and I'll come back whenever I can. You won't get rid of me that easily." But everyone knew that visits would be rare, expensive, limited by the demands of a career that was just beginning. 2 weeks before the departure date, Victor made the final decision. There wasn't a dramatic conversation or a specific moment of revelation. Simply, on a Saturday morning, he came down for breakfast and said with a calm that surprised even himself, I'm going to America." Naturally, this leads us to understand that the most important decisions in life often arrive not with fanfare, but with a quietness that reveals their inevitability. Elodie had prepared for this moment for weeks, but when the words were finally said, she felt as if the ground had moved slightly under her feet. She nodded, smiled, kissed her son's forehead, and said, "Then let's make this an unforgettable farewell." The days that followed were a strange mixture of forced normalcy and emotional preparation. Victor organized his things, carefully choosing what he would take to his new life. Some clothes, family photos, a basketball autographed by his father when he turned 10. But there was something Victor knew he needed to do before leaving. Something that spoken words couldn't express adequately. Something he could leave for his mother as a bridge between what was being left behind and what was to come. He decided to write a letter. He didn't know yet that this letter would become the most precious document of the Wembanyama family, reread hundreds of times over the years, stained with tears, and kept as a treasure that would grow in emotional value with each conquest, each victory, each moment when longing squeezed the heart of a proud mother. On the eve of departure, while the house slept, Victor sat at his study desk, the same one where he had done thousands of homework assignments, where he had drawn his first drawings, where he had written his first words. And he began to write the letter that would break and rebuild Elodie Wembanyama's heart, showing her that she had created not just an extraordinary son, but a young man capable of transforming love into courage, longing into motivation, and farewell into a promise of reunion. The desk lamp gently illuminated the blank paper on Victor's study table. It was 2 in the morning on a Tuesday that would become the last full day he would spend at home. Outside, Le Chesnay slept silently, but in the second-floor room, a 14-year-old boy struggled to find words that could express the immeasurable. A son's love for his mother, the fear of leaving, the gratitude for a lifetime of unconditional support. You can perceive how there is something sacred about writing a letter by hand in the middle of the night, when the entire world seems suspended, and words flow directly from the heart to the paper. Victor had started the letter 3 times. 3 crumpled sheets rested in the trash can next to the desk. Attempts that sounded too childish, too formal, or simply insufficient to carry the weight of everything he needed to say. But now, on the 4th attempt, words began to flow as if they had been waiting inside him, ready to be freed. "My dear maman," he wrote, his careful handwriting reflecting the seriousness of the moment. "Tomorrow, when you read this letter, I'll already be on the plane to America. I know it's strange to write a letter to someone who is sleeping in the next room, but there are things I can only say on paper, without seeing your tears, and without mine preventing me from speaking." The sound of the pen gliding over the paper mixed with Victor's controlled breathing, who stopped from time to wipe his eyes and gather courage to continue. "I want you to know that this is the most difficult decision I've ever made in my life. It's not difficult because I'm not sure. It's difficult because I'm too sure. I know I need to go, but that doesn't make the departure less painful. It's as if my heart is being divided in half. One part goes with me to realize the dream, the other stays here with you forever." It's impossible not to feel how certain words written by young hands carry a wisdom that transcends age, born from the purity of feelings that haven't yet learned to hide. 3 floors below, Elodie couldn't sleep. She had tried for hours, but every time she closed her eyes, she saw images of Victor as a child. His first steps, his first word, "Maman," the first time he managed to make a basket on the backyard court. It was as if her mind was trying to store every memory before it was too late. Meanwhile, Victor continued writing, pouring 16 years of love and gratitude onto the paper. "You taught me that being big isn't about height, but about the size of your heart. You taught me that dreams are important, but family is essential. You taught me that courage isn't not being afraid. It's doing what needs to be done, even when you're terrified. I remember when I was 8 years old and cried because some boys at school laughed at my height. You knelt in front of me, even though I was already taller than you, and said, 'Victor, God made you big on the outside so you could be even bigger on the inside.' I never forgot those words. They sustained me through every difficult training, every moment of doubt. How many times does a mother plant seeds of wisdom without knowing they will grow to sustain her child in life's most challenging moments?" The letter continued, page after page, revealing not only a son's love, but the emotional depth of a young man who had learned to see beyond his own dreams. I know you're trying to be strong for me, but I see how you hide tears when you think no one is looking. I want you to know that you don't need to be strong all the time. You can cry. You can miss me. You can be sad. I'll also cry, miss home, and be sad. But that only proves how special our family is. I'll take with me everything you taught me. The importance of being kind to everyone, regardless of who they are. The value of hard work. The beauty of helping others who need it. And especially, that success without family to share it with isn't real success. Victor seated, stopped writing for a moment, looking through the window of the room where he had grown up. The moon illuminated the garden where he had played for years, the court where he had dreamed of moments like this. In a few hours, it would be just a memory seen through an airplane window. But there was something more he needed to say, something that would summarize everything. Maman, I want you to understand something very important. I'm not leaving. I'm taking home with me every hug of yours, every piece of advice, every "I love you" whispered before sleep. All of this comes with me to America. And when I'm playing, when I'm training, when I'm missing home, I'll remember that you're cheering for me. Mom, I carry you with me in every shot. The words, "in every shot," were written with an emotional intensity that made Victor stop and breathe deeply before continuing. I promise I'll make you proud, not just as a player, but as a man. I'll honor everything you taught me, and I'll come back, home, maybe not to live, but always to hug, to laugh, to be your son. Thank you for giving me wings knowing I would use them to fly far away. Thank you for loving me enough to let me go. Thank you for being the best mother a son could have. With all the love in the world, your Victor who loves you more than basketball, more than dreams, more than anything. Naturally, this leads us to understand that the most powerful declarations of love often are born in moments of separation, when we realize that some things are too big to be taken for granted. Victor carefully folded the letter and placed it in an envelope, where he wrote in neat letters, "For the strongest and most loving woman in the world, Maman." He left the envelope on the kitchen table next to the coffee maker, where he knew his mother would find it in the morning. 6 hours later, Elodie came down to prepare coffee as she had done every morning for 16 years. But when she saw the envelope, she immediately knew that this wouldn't be a morning like the others. Her hands trembled slightly as she opened the letter. And when she began to read, the tears she had contained for weeks finally found their way. But they weren't just tears of sadness. They were tears of pride, gratitude, overflowing love for having raised a son capable of writing words that would touch her heart for the rest of her life. When Victor came down for breakfast, he found his mother holding the letter against her chest, smiling through tears. "Merci, mon trésor," she whispered. And in that hug that lasted an eternity, both understood that some farewells aren't final. They're just the beginning of a new way to love. 3 hours later, at Charles de Gaulle Airport, when Victor crossed the boarding gate and waved one last time, Elodie touched the pocket where she kept the folded letter. And she knew that, no matter the distance, her son would always be with her. In every memory, in every prayer, in every heartbeat of a mother who had learned that loving sometimes means letting fly. 2.5 years after the letter that changed everything, Elodie Wembanyama was in her living room in Le Chesnay. watching on television her 16-year-old son dominate a court in Florida, as if he had been born for it. Victor had grown 10 more centimeters, gained muscles and confidence. But when the cameras focused on him closely, Elodie could still see the boy who had written those moving words on a cold dawn. You can perceive how certain promises written by young hands transform into reality in ways that not even those who made them could imagine. The letter remained stored in a special drawer of Elodie's desk, but it was far from forgotten. In the first months after Victor's departure, she reread it almost every week. In moments of most intense longing, when the house seemed too big and too quiet, her son's words were like a distant hug, reminding her that this separation had a greater purpose. Victor had fulfilled every word written in that letter. During the first difficult months at IMG Academy, when loneliness pressed and the temptation to give up seemed strong, he remembered the promises made to his mother. "I'll make you proud, not just as a player, but as a man." The weekly video calls became sacred for the Wembanyama family. Every Tuesday at 8 o'clock in the evening French time, everyone gathered in the living room to talk with Victor. Initially, they were conversations loaded with longing and some contained tears, but gradually they transformed into weekly celebrations of growth, achievements, and dreams materializing. "How are your studies?" Elodie always asked first, because even across oceans, she continued being a mother. "I'm doing well, Maman. Do you remember what you always said? Smart head is more important than skillful hands." I'm taking that seriously. It's impossible not to feel how true bonds not only resist distance, but sometimes strengthen through it. At 17 years old, Victor was already considered one of the greatest promises in world basketball. American universities fought for his attention. NBA scouts watched him attentively. Specialized magazines put his photo on covers with headlines about the future of basketball. But for Elodie, the greatest proof that the letter had been prophetic wasn't in the sports headlines. It was in the little things Victor continued doing. He called whenever he could, sent flowers on her birthday, never forgot his younger siblings, spoke French with an increasingly pronounced American accent, but refused to forget his mother tongue. During an interview that went viral on the internet, when a reporter asked about his source of motivation, Victor replied, "My mother always said I carry her with me in every shot." It's not just a beautiful phrase, it's literally true. Every time I enter the court, I remember the sacrifice she made for me to be here. How many times does a phrase written at 2 in the morning by a scared teenager become a life philosophy that inspires millions? The phrase, "I carry you with me in every shot," gained a life of its own on social media. Young athletes around the world began using variations of it to honor their own families. Mothers posted photos with children, accompanied by the quote. It became a universal symbol of love that transcends distances. 3 years after leaving France, Victor returned home for the first time. No longer as the giant and scared boy who had left, but as a young man who had honored every promise made in that letter. The reunion at Charles de Gaulle Airport was filmed by paparazzi and went viral. But for the Wembanyama family, the cameras were irrelevant. When Victor hugged Elodie, she whispered in his ear, "You kept your word, mon trésor. You made me proud every day. Thank you for letting me fly, Maman. Thank you for believing I would come back." During that 2-week visit, Victor made sure to revisit every place mentioned in the UBU's letter. The room where he had written it, the kitchen where Elodie had found it, the backyard court where his dreams had begun. It was as if he was closing a circle, connecting the boy he was with the man he had become. Naturally, this leads us to understand that the greatest journeys aren't measured in kilometers traveled, but in promises kept and hearts honored. On the last night of that visit, Elodie showed Victor something he didn't know existed. She had framed the original letter and hung it in her room, where she could see it every morning when waking up and every night before sleeping. "You kept it?" Victor asked, moved. "This letter is the most precious document in this house," Elodie replied. "It's proof that I raised not just an exceptional player, but a man of his word. It's proof that love can travel oceans without losing its strength." Years later, when Victor became the first choice in the NBA draft, when he won titles, when he broke records and redefined what was possible to do on a basketball court, that letter continued being reread. At every important achievement, Elodie took the framed letter and read it aloud to the gathered family. The 14-year-old boy's words gained new meanings with each victory, each moment of glory. Each time Victor used his platform to help other young people pursue their dreams. The letter became part of the Wembanyama family legend, a document that proved that sometimes the most painful choices are also the most necessary. How is it possible that words written on a farewell dawn transform into the manifesto of an extraordinary life? The answer lay in the authenticity of that moment. Victor hadn't written to impress or for posterity. He had written because he needed his mother to know that this departure wasn't abandonment. It was transformation of love into action, longing into fuel, separation into motivation, to become someone worthy of the sacrifices made for him. And when Elodie turned 50 years old, Victor made a surprise that moved her more than any trophy or recognition. He had a replica of that letter made in gold, with a dedication, "For the woman who taught me that loving is giving wings, even knowing they'll be used to fly far away. Thank you for every word, every tear, every prayer. Promise kept. Forever your Victor." Because in the end, Victor Wembanyama's greatest victory wasn't becoming a world basketball star. It was proving that it's possible to pursue dreams without forgetting where you came from, reach extraordinary heights without losing humility, and conquer the entire world without ceasing to be the son who writes love letters to his mother. And perhaps this is the true lesson of the letter that changed everything. Some choices break hearts not to destroy them, but to rebuild them stronger, bigger, capable of loving across any distance and celebrating through any longing. After all, the best dreams are those that honor who taught us to dream.